I love MMORPGs. I'm bad at them, and I don't particularly play them in very orthodox ways, but I love them all the same. As a suspected ADHD enjoyer, I often tire of things quickly, whether that is food, drink, films, music, or indeed video games. I'll come back around to things in time, but I like to switch things up a lot. So this drives me to seek out and try different MMORPGs, as it is one of my favourite genres, and try them out. Which is also not exactly the most optimal way to play MMORPGs because, as I have mentioned on more than a million occasions, they are games that typically demand a lot of your time and are designed for you to pretty much play that game and that game alone forever. It's why they pack them with different things to do, like crafting or fishing or homesteading, because they want you to stay in that game and increase the chances of you spending more money because, you know,
capitalism.
Anyway, putting to one side the failure of neoliberalism and an intrinsically cruel system which is harder to remove than Japanese knotweed, it is my desire to try all the MMORPGs. And indeed, I have tried most of them, and in particular, I am rather fond of Guild Wars 2 and World of Warcraft. But there is one other game that sits atop the mighty perch of the top MMORPGs, which I have banged my head against for many hours with very little to show for it other than elevated blood pressure and a few less brain cells. That game is Final Fantasy XIV. I'll try and keep this relatively short, but you can probably tell from my glowing words that I have a bit of a problem with this game, and that is indeed true. But there is one prevailing fault that keeps driving me onwards. I often put it down because I have either been bored to tears or moved to rage by having to open the wiki and about 5 different browser tabs trying to figure out where the chuffing chuff I am supposed to go next. And indeed, it has taken me almost 3 years, I think, to get to where I am now. But there is this little stubborn voice inside me that just won't let this one go. Why? Because everyone tells me it gets good. And not just that thing where you can make a video about any reasonably successful MMORPG and some section of the fanbase will insist that it does get good if you play 11.5 billion hours and sacrifice your left testy to whichever god will have it. I am talking about the undeniable proof that you can see with your own eyes, which is player numbers, how long it has been running, stuff like that. There is no argument here. It is a fact that Final Fantasy XIV is one of the big 5, if not big 2, of the MMORPG landscape. It is a very popular game. So why do I kind of hate it? Well, firstly, if not friend, then why friend shape? And what I mean by that is that in every way, Final Fantasy XIV is a proper MMORPG.
A proper MMORPG.
Tab targeting, I can move by pressing down both buttons on my mouse, left hand working through rotations of skills, inventories, fast travel, cheesy dialogue and characters. Oh yes, all the ingredients are here to make a tasty MMO stew. So why does it taste like someone took a shit in it? Let me just make things clear that in this video we are strictly talking about A Realm Reborn. I know everyone kind of hates the base game, or it is widely considered to be an annoying slog, and I also know that it gets better with each expansion. I am literally on the cusp of finding out for myself, but I have a few bits to do first because this game bloody cock-blocked me when I was so close to the end. I'll touch on that later, but for now, I think that is why I find it so frustrating, because in almost every way I find it so familiar yet so awkward. Let's just establish quickly some things that it does pretty well. Movement, general gameplay check, graphics check, combat check, all the main things are there. The game looks good and plays well. It is just everything else that annoys me. Let's start with the main thing that makes me want to rip my eyeballs from my head, and that is the unrelenting onslaught of text boxes. I go to bed at night and see those stupid text boxes in my dreams. I know that as a person who doesn't really like story-driven stuff, this was probably not the best choice of story-driven MMORPG, but it isn't all story, and quite frankly, I don't even think the story is that interesting. I have proven in the past that if a story is engaging and is introduced to me in the right way, I can be dragged into it and get invested. I didn't like Expedition 33's combat all that much, but I still watched a playthrough of the game for the story because I just needed to know what happened at the end. Not here though. I turned on auto progression on the cutscenes, and every time they started I just had a little nap in my chair and waited for the game to finish so I could get on with it. The story did get interesting for a brief moment when it looked like the people of Uldar were about to revolt, and then it kind of didn't and we just moved on. Could I have a text box with a side of text box with an extra text on top? Cheers, mate. Christ. Now, none of this would be as bad if the game sort of luxuriated in itself a bit more. What I mean by that is that once I have stopped ignoring the text boxes, the game just becomes a continual process of talking to some blowhard, getting a quest, hear the stupid trumpets, then clicking on your quest to the right hand side, and then clicking on the nearest crystal on the map to the quest marker, fast travelling to that location, speaking to someone else, skip a load of text boxes, complete mission, get mission, fast travel to next objective, complete mission, get mission, fast travel to next objective,
complete mission, get mission, fast travel to next objective, complete mission, get mission, fast travel to next objective, complete mission, get mission, fast travel to next objective,
and so on and so forth. When do I get to play this goddamn game? Oh, well, when I was saying complete mission, I didn't mean I went and did the mission. I meant I just fucking clicked on the box and it completed the mission, and then I got the next one. And to be honest, while the game does look nice and the general aesthetics, while not my favourite, are pretty enjoyable, especially bearing in mind this is the base game which is now getting on a bit, the environments aren't as interesting as other MMORPGs. Hopefully this is something that will change as I get into the other expansions, but this certainly isn't something like WoW Classic, where the journey is half the fun and the environments fill you with a sort of wonder as you pass through them, each one quite different. At this point, I have spent 172 goddamn hours in this game. And I'll hold my hands up and say that owing to my addiction to alts and my inability to resist rolling a new character to try out other classes and see if the grass is greener, it is, my fault to a degree. So I have fannied about with a few different characters in spurts over 3 years. And whilst I did roll a Catboy on this most recent return to the game, of course, I ultimately managed to find some discipline and go back to the Dragoon that I had got to level 40 and pressed on with him. He's one of those big moody dragon fellas, and after a while my sanity was worn down so much by the text boxes and the fast travelling and the lack of actual combat that I got so fed up with looking at his stupid pouty face and his big stupid lady hips that I went completely mad and paid Square Enix more money and literally turned him into a Lalafell just to make things look stupid and break up the monotony. Touché, Final Fantasy, touché. One thing I have mentioned before, which I always wanted other MMORPGs to introduce to their games, was the ability to run dungeons with an NPC party. I thought this was really good and helped me to progress through the game and experience things right up until the point where the game turned around and spat in my face and said, "No more NPCs for you, you naughty little Lalafell. Now you have to team up with other players to progress the main storyline." Playing with others? No problem. I just don't like to be forced into group content to progress the main story. But it seems as though most people are probably playing in other expansions, so after making me sit through your endless bullshit, I now have to sit outside a dungeon waiting for other poor souls to fight by my side. Yes, I know I should have expanded the language options or something to make the matchmaking pool a little wider, but I didn't know that. It is all these little things that kind of make me feel like the game is deliberately taking the piss out of me. Literally, I think the best thing that happened in the whole time I've been playing this is when this little Brussels sprout prick got booted into a wall. I jest, of course. Or do I? Anyway, the game started to get a little better towards the end, where there was a lot more action and it wasn't not enjoyable, but I think I would have enjoyed it more if I didn't have 3 years of fatigue, which was just making me want to get through this and into the first expansion. And of course, whilst there was more combat, there was still an unhealthy dose of text boxes. If you love text boxes so much, game, then why don't you marry them? Quick side note, I'm not a fan of the stupid Chocobo either. I think that Guild Wars 2 has just spoiled me for mounts and it's hard for anyone to compete at this point, but I digress. But there I was, I had chinned the last boss and I was rubbing my hands gleefully together in anticipation of patting myself on the back and getting over this massive hump that is a Realm Reborn, and then I was left scratching my head as to how I accessed it, and then it dawned on me. There had obviously been patches back in the day, so there was more missions that had been introduced, and I had to complete them before I could get into the first expansion. So after I'd stopped crying, I picked myself up and I soldiered on. You will not beat me, game. I will get where I want to be. So to give myself a clearer picture of what is going on, I opened up the wiki and found the quest list and oh my god. I mean, quick tangent, what sort of bullshit game prompts you to open the damn wiki every time you log in like they know you won't have a fucking clue what is going on? I feel like this is bad design on the part of the game to not teach you what you need to know, but perhaps I am being unduly harsh because, let's face it, all MMORPGs have a lot of info to impart, and so it is a challenge for everyone, but I don't feel like Final Fantasy XIV does it particularly well. But that said, the amount of quests I had to do was dispiriting, but I set to work. There seemed to be even less combat than before, and I spent what seemed like hours repeating the well-trodden path of get quest, fast travel, ignore text boxes, turn in quest, go to next one. Every time I thought I was getting near the end, I would scroll down on the wiki to find 25 more quests. And just when I thought I was reaching the end, I am suddenly told I can't do the next story mission until I have finished some hard trials. Can I find these in my duty finder? No. Does the game tell me where I need to go? No. Do I have to search across the web and have numerous tabs open as I try and figure out where I need to go as I wade through different Reddit threads? Yes. I straight up just threw a strop and logged out of the game and had a sulk. But eventually I came back. I found the dickhead I needed to speak to and I started to work through those trials. Right now, as I am writing this script, I am waiting in queues for other players to complete these trials. The game, once again, cock-blocking me, tying my shoelaces together and laughing in my face as I fall over and graze my knee. Even after all this, I still soldier on. Because so many people cannot be wrong, can they? Can they? Even though this has felt like a torturous process at times, I will get there. This is my Everest and I will reach the peak, and when I do, I'll come back and I'll let you know how I find Heaven's Ward. I've bought Dawn Trial and therefore all the expansions before that, so I have a lot of this madness to get through. So I guess I'll just get back to it and hopefully I'll see you on the next one.